Hello, I'm back. Aren't you glad? Maybe not. Just going to cover 3, 4 different subjects, topics, all of which are related to reclaiming securities and the pickle jar that we're all in. And first thing here I want to touch on is God and his government. Many people agree that God created man. So they go God, man, and then they bring in this, and God and man formed government, and claiming that human government created by man, is there to protect our property. This is complete and total wrong thinking, completely. God did not authorize man to create or form governments for any reason, let alone to protect our property. This is hogwash. To do so is to reject God, his government, his laws, his statutes, his ordinances, his judgments, his will, his protection, his love, and our birthrights. There's a rejection of God coupled with our participation in this monopoly game system that they, so it seems, trespass against us, but it's not really a trespass. See, we rejected God. His yoke is light, and formed this human government, and then become a member of it. These governments, these countries. This rejection of God and allegiance to a human leader is mentioned at 1 Samuel 8, as are the consequences. Read it. In other words, the existence of human government is the evidence or proof of the rejection of God and his government. We turn our back on God, our maker. Shame on us. So read 1 Samuel 8, 10 to 17 in particular. Now, this is just to put in perspective. This is when the people petition God for a man, a human king, to rule over them and judge them. Sound familiar? Got a queen here, right? You got a president. In other countries. It's laid out very clear and concise in 1 Samuel 8. What happens if we reject God, his government? We're all in it. We've all done it. Everyone I know. This rejection of God is the underlying cause why we are in the mess we are in. And unless the man or woman sitting as judge in a courtroom knows and is upholding the laws and the judgments of God, there is no justice in those courts, public, whatever you want to call them, for man and women, and that there never will be. Human government is the antithesis of God and his government. God is freedom, liberty, love, happiness. Human government is death and destruction, enslavement, slave masters, plunder, rape, theft, tasering, shooting, taking people's liberty for decades at a time. It is not there to serve us. We are here to serve it. Read the first 5 books of the Bible if you want to know what the laws and judgments of God are. You will find no more fair laws and judgment than those of God. These are found in the first 5 books of the Holy Bible. This has nothing to do with religion. It's nothing. The word religion is in the Bible once, and it's not at all what's going on out there. These 400 or 500 different religious organizations around the planet, each one claiming to be a spokesman for God. It's all nonsense. It's all human mumbo jumbo. Every matter or cause of action between men that could possibly arise has already been decided by God, his judgments. It's all there. So ultimately, what has to happen here, in the long-term bigger picture, is to stop empowering human government. See, human government gets its power from the will of the people, the voter. So we got to stop doing that nonsense. So those governments dissolve, leaving only God's government and actually enforcing and upholding his laws and his judgments. It's all there. So I just wanted to briefly touch on that, give people a little heads up there that no, this human government is not there to protect your property. It's there to steal from you. That's its purpose. God laid it out for us in 1 Samuel 8. If you do this, I will do this for you. You people, okay, you want to reject me and you want a human government? Fine, I'll give you that. Here's what's going to happen, and we're all in it, all of it. Now, if you do go back into the Bible there, read the first 5 books of the Bible to see what the laws and the judgments are, back in those days, 2,000 years ago, they were talking about cattle and sheep and land and that sort of stuff. Keep in mind that that's what we're talking about is property. So whether it be a horse or a goat or an automobile or a motorcycle or a TV or your house, we're talking property. So don't get hung up on when they're talking about assets. Yeah, I can be an ass too sometimes, but and donkeys and stuff like that. We're talking property. So just take out the word donkey and put in the word automobile. So if somebody steals my car, this is God's judgment here. If somebody steals my car, he has to give me my car back and his car. Somebody steals $1,000, you got to give me, well, it actually gets into a multiple here, but they got to give me that back plus that and triple. Depends on the circumstances. It's all there. Same as bearing false witness. If somebody bears false witness, whatever they're bearing a false witness would cause upon another would fall upon the one bearing false witness. So in other words, if someone's bearing false witness, it was going to cost somebody 10 years in jail because so-and-so lied on the witness stand, well, then the liar goes to jail for 10 years. So that would encourage people not to lie now, wouldn't it? Or to be honest, not get involved in all this. This is the thing, like you start to see that all the human laws is completely the opposite of God's. It all sounds fine and dandy, but it's for persons. It's not there for you and I. It's not there for men. And persons are owned and controlled and regulated as it is now by human governments until we reclaim our securities and take that control back from them. So, I just wanted to touch on that get people to thinking about that. And I would strongly recommend that those people are doing, you stop promoting that human government was created to protect our property. No, it wasn't. God warned us what would happen if we did it. We did it, and we're in it. So trying to get into their courts for any reason under any common law, whatever, you're wasting your time. Thank you so much. That's just the end of this part. I'm just going to stop this and come back with the second part of this video. Thank you so much. One thing I just want to add in here too is I get the odd email from people who are implementing some of the things discussed in our YouTube videos, which is you're all at liberty to do. We've given you lots of information in these videos that you can connect the dots yourselves, or if you don't want to get our Reclaim Your Securities info package to maybe make it quicker for you to have that understanding of the principles and the concepts. So far, mainly the emails I'm getting for people is they're doing the power of attorney thing. And I got to just caution these people. I never mentioned in any of the videos the content of the verbiage or what the verbiage is for the power of attorney. This is not your typical power of attorney. It's not like a power of attorney over property or alternate decisions or anything like that. It's completely different than any power of attorney you're going to see out there. So if you're following those formats that are available on the internet, so on and so forth, which I assure you is not what we use, how we draft it. You may want to rethink that. But again, you have free will. Little touch here on non-disclosure. It is not disclosed that the registration of live birth is a financial asset, a security. I'm not trying to convince you of that. You just got to see it. Everything. This is a concealment of a material fact. It's not good business practices. Just knowing that provides an avenue for relief if you think about it, how to address it. This is one circumstance that the reasonable man doctrine kicks in. I don't know if you guys know about the reasonable man doctrine, but that's what we're talking about here. For example, when my mom provided the information to register the event of the birth, did my mom do it to register the birth? Did I be injured? Did she do it for my good and benefit? Did she do it for the benefit of a stranger? What about you, Mr. Judge? Did your mom register the event of your birth for my benefit? For your benefit or the benefit of a stranger? Or did she do it that you get screwed over and there are so many other people with the knowledge and come and steal your property and steal your liberty, so on and so forth? And how do you think people are going to answer that? Clearly, by far, most people, this is the reasonable man part now, most reasonable people are going to say, well, my mom did it for my benefit, clearly. That's just a little blurbage on the like say the reasonable man doctrine, very applicable here. There's many ways to use the knowledge of the Reclaiming Your Securities. Far too many for me to list out here. Best way really is to read and study the Reclaiming Your Securities information, be educated, pick a path or a comfort zone and run with it fearlessly. For example, I'm going to share something here that one man who has the Reclaim Your Securities information did with it recently. It's not a major thing that he done. but that's not my point. Thinking is. I did not coach him on this. He did this on his own based on his knowledge and understanding of reclaiming your securities. Here it is. I want to share a minor success regarding Child Protective Services in the Department of Health and Human Services. Someone filed a complaint against us. I spoke with a social worker and he stated he did not work for me, and I corrected him and expressed the trust. I called the Michigan Attorney General's office regarding the matter and again expressed the trust and identified myself as a securities entitlement holder on record under special private trust deposit with the Treasury. A few hours later, the social worker called back with a new attitude, and all he wanted was to close the case. It wouldn't even come to the property we are homesteading. I stripped him of his corporate cloak and brought him into the kingdom of God as a brother and allowed him to see our daughters in good conscience and gave him a handwritten objection with the authority to settle and close the matter with prejudice on the complainant under special deposit for that specific purpose and intent. He didn't even get out of his car. He just wanted to close the matter and get as far away from us as he could, ASAP. So it's just, again, an example is to get the understanding of the principles and the concepts here. Like I say, there's many, many things you can do with it. And of course, in this case, this gentleman had set up his account at the Treasury. He claimed his securities account. I've shown you this before, but I'm going to do it again. This is the registration of live birth, right? You'll recognize that. Certificate of live birth, statement of live birth. This is, mom's signature down here. When you know you got in this foundational security and take control of it, the sky is no limit. I tell you, your life, everything you do in this embodiment, in this live stream, in the all capital letter name, is founded on this foundational security. It starts here. Everything sits on this. Income, all of it. The fruits, this is the tree, the fruits of the tree. As the sole contributor, you have the full right to claim your interests, your property, the fruits. Truth is the truth, and stand firm on the truth. Yes, I'm reading from my notes. The reason I read from my notes, because I make my notes before I start off, and I want to make sure that I'm not saying things that might lead people misguide people or mislead people. Words have meaning. And with respect to this, perfection, we're talking about perfecting a security interest in this. It starts here. This is the important one here, not the birth certificate. This, although this is the birth certificate, this is the long form, but this is the foundational security. The other birth certificate, the little card one, is an extract of this, an extract. It's not this. Perfection is achieved by registration. And you'll find this in register, and this is just from section 23 of the Personal Property Security Act. Registration, you'll find the same on UCC Article 9. Registration perfects a security interest in any type of collateral, financial asset, investment property. Remember in a previous video, I explained that these things, not what people think. The manner for taking control, because remember, this is about control, not ownership, is laid out in UCC Article 8 and 9, or in the Securities Transfer Act and Personal Property Security Act, which you'll find in Canada and other jurisdictions. And we have recorded Zoom meetings that go over this. And I would not try to fit man in as the secure party, as I've stated several times. Remember, form only. I still see people on the internet, putting down the man as the secure party. See what's going to happen here, and how I've seen people doing it. You put down the debtor, all cap John Paul Smith. You put the secure parties upper lowercase John Paul Smith. But once it gets into the computer, it all goes to all capital letters. So secure parties, all capital letters John Paul Smith. Debtors, all capital letters John Paul Smith. It's all the same. Looks like you leaned yourself, that kind of nonsense the judges will throw out there, and it's true. And so the whole thing just collapses back to the original trust. This, and it's as if you just wasted your time. You just made yourself look like a fool, quite frankly. Okay, I'm going to pause again. I got to get a top of my coffee cup. Oh yeah, coffee. It's early in the morning here. Beautiful sunny morning, by the way. God bless. Thanks. Just a sec. Okay. Triple. Coffee. I'm cutting back, not to worry. There are branches of government that oversee the securities. They regulate securities dealers, traders, so on and so forth. They all have to be registered, licensed. That type of organization can help you out here as well. Those entities deal with complaints and enforcement, such as, listen to this, trading on securities without your consent. Speaking of trading on securities without your consent, let me explain something here. Very, very relevant. Extremely important and very significant. The all capital letters estate, here's the proof of its existence on here. Name plus registration number. It's never just the name and number. The all capital letters estate is the mother of all debtors. Think about that. The public estate is actually the surety for all securities you and the public have issued or may issue against your credit. That is what they're after, your credit. So they charge the straw man debtor, that's your all cap letter plus SIN number or SSN number, to get to your public estate, to get to you, which is known as your gilt-edged credit, meaning gilt-edged, look it up, gilt-edged credit. It's golden. That's what it is. And they even talked about this in the Hansards in, in the Parliament of Canada, 1930s, when they're interviewing Graham Tower. Mr. Jacques asked, why cannot the people get the benefit of their own gilt-edged credit? Well, with this process here, that's what we're talking about, getting control of that, so we do get the benefit of it. Yeah, so anyhow, so they charge the straw man to get to your state, to get to you, your gilt-edged credit, which is to draw on your labor or productivity. So what they do, they create an account on the books, the Department of the Treasury, the Department of Finance, to accommodate the deposit of this into an account. The sole purpose of the account is to leverage / issue securities backed by your future labor. Future securities futures, right? Promises to pay. Do you see now why you want to claim your securities, why you want to take control? You, us, we, men and women, are the originators of the credit. What the banks do. They are, or claim to be, the originators of credit. But know this, all credit comes from man and woman, the true banks. But don't go walk around with a shirt on, I'm a bank. Don't think of it in those terms. To reclaim your securities paperwork gives them notice of adverse claim. And we did a couple of Zoom meeting chats about this, everything I'm talking about here now in this last final part of this video, to explain this in further detail so you can connect the dots. So they, as well as you, need our public estates, us, to consent to underwrite the securities issued against our credit. Say that again. They, as well as you, need our public estates, evidenced by this, represented by this, to consent to underwrite the securities issued against our credit. Look up the word underwrite, to assume financial responsibility for, agree to pay the costs of, to supply with funding, especially as a sponsor. So you see, they, the judges of trust, and others presume you will consent for your estate to underwrite the securities they issue against it. It is on that presumption they go ahead and issue securities against your credit. I mean, before they actually get your consent, you haven't consented yet, and they've already started to do stuff because they're presuming you're going to consent, because that's what people have done for decades now in ignorance. This consent can happen 3 ways, and each constitutes a banker's acceptance. You hire a lawyer, you sign a promise to appear, or you show up in the courtroom / partake in the proceedings. Bang, that's your consent. You've now consented, you're authorized for them to put your estate up as a surety to underwrite their bonds, their securities, make their securities good, backed by you, your credit. It's the thing, if they can do these things, we can do these things, right? They can do it for their benefit off of our backs, we can do it for our benefit off of our backs. If you understand fully what I just said, what would it mean? What would happen if you said the estate does not consent to underwrite their securities, their bonds? I repeat, listen up here. They already issued securities / bonds, thinking your estate would pick up the tab, that you would authorize it, that you would consent. If you authorize it, they get your credit. Their securities are good. It's all good. If not, their paper is worthless. Worthless. It's called securities fraud. They can lose their license. There's a little bit of blurb here from the directly from the Reclaim Your Securities post, which if you get our information package, you get all of them. Just want to quote here from Bill. The courts, they issue the case bond when they issue the case number. So until you enter the court and grant them the presumption of jurisdiction, they are on the hook because they voluntarily committed securities fraud by issuing worthless securities without an underwriter. Very significant. That's why Winston Churchill's in jail. And they also engaged in conspiracy to obstruct tax laws because they're liable for the taxes until you consent, until you give them that banker's acceptance. And they have no intention of reporting the capital gain. How do we know that? They don't report any of these case bonds because they consider them to be original issue securities, which are non-taxable. Remember, I told you in a previous video that original issue securities are non-taxable. So when they're presuming that their securities are original issue because you didn't step up and say, actually, no, that's not right, then they don't have to report the tax obligation because there is no taxes on original issue securities. When you throw the wrench into the cornflakes on that one, you can get pretty nasty for them. So to put all that very simply here, it is as if they went out, put up assurances, and bought things on your credit, only to discover afterward you did not authorize them to do that. Ooh, who's on the hook here now? Put it another way, is like they issued a check on your account on the basis you would cover it. But if you don't consent, then they're stuck with the whole thing. That's when it gets really nasty for them, or can. So just to give you a little heads up, a little tip here. If I got a fine, I don't care for what, I would attach it to a copy of this and mail it to whoever the fine is payable, as well as a copy to the authority that oversees securities. I would add a wee note, handwritten note. Neither the estate, evidenced by this, nor the undersigned consents to or authorizes the estate as the surety / underwriter. Ooh. Now, just a little word of caution here. I would not do that unless I had a decent understanding of the principles and the concepts relating to reclaim my securities. See, Lord Bowden, I went to Boy Scouts long ago. And Boy Scouts back then in the 60s and early 70s was different than today. Today they have campfires around. They put a box in a light bulb in a building somewhere. It's ridiculous. But anyhow, that's when I first heard of Lord Baden-Powell, and the motto there was really simple. Lord Baden-Powell said it well. He said, always be prepared. So by having the Reclaim Your Securities information and getting a decent understanding of the principles and the concepts, you're prepared. Okay. So again, I'm not deterring people from going forth and doing. You got free will, you do whatever you want. Nobody's got a gun here to your head. But I would just use a little common sense here or sense and not just react to stuff you hear here and thinking, well, okay, I got it. Maybe you do. And it's not that anything's wrong with what we're doing here, but I talked about this in a previous video. It's not just a script here that they're going to follow. So you don't know what they might come back with. You got to be prepared for them to test you. What are you talking about? What do you mean? That's not a security. Frivolous, vexatious, or you're one of those free man on the land guys, or sovereign citizen guys, blah, 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 or commercial litigant of some kind, blah, 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 blah. What are you going to do if they do that? So that's why I say it would be important to have in my estimation anyhow, a decent understanding or a good understanding of the principles and the concepts of reclaiming your securities, so that I don't care. You don't care what they say. You just stick on point. The estate does not, in this case, the estate does not consent to underwrite anything here. So they didn't get your consent now, did they? So just let me check over my notes, make sure I covered everything here properly, and I will get back to you after another sip of coffee. Just a moment. Thanks. Okay, I lied. I went outside to get some fresh air and enjoy the sunshine there for a few minutes because I can. So yeah, so I get there's some talk on the internet too about perfecting a security interest, and perfection is achieved through registration. It's laid out in UCC Article 8 and Article 9. I'm talking with respect to securities. Just to off the top, and the Securities Transfer Act for Ontario, which is UCC Article 8. And again, I remind people, if you go through the definitions in UCC Article 8 and the definitions in Securities Transfer Act, they're almost word for word the same. So the Securities Transfer Act is based on or founded on UCC Article 8. It's the same thing, just a different name. And it's not 100% exactly the same, but it's basically at the end of the day saying the same thing. The same rules and principles apply. So it tells you in there with respect to taking control, how the secure party takes control. And that's all part of our Reclaim Your Securities information package. We've done Zoom meeting, we can get all the recordings. That's part of what you get in the package, those recordings. And but again, let me just stress here again one last time, and then I'm done here. And that is that it's understanding the principles and the concepts, so you can. And when you start to see these things, you start to see, like I say, multiple pathways to go with this information. Many things you can do. You can go a little bit, or you can go the full distance. Depends what you're trying to do. And for most people that are new to this, you want to do some simple things just to get your feet wet. And whether you succeed or fail or not, it's not the point. You learn from it before you go for the bigger stuff. And of course, all of this, purpose of all of this is to get all of that legal and financial mumbo jumbo off your back and put it where it should be. The holder of this. And again, go to our blog and read the uniform. Click on go to our blog, restorethekingdomofgod.blogspot.com. There's 3 buttons there. Click here buttons. I would click on each of them. And in particular for this conversation, the uniform securitization scheme, and read it. Read it. You'll see that, oh yes, this starts off at the Office of the Registrar General where the birth is registered, but it ends up in an account, or they open it up account and deposit this on the federal side. Okay, that's the custodian. That's the one you want to convert to the intermediary / trustee. That's who you would send all the stuff to after that for set off. So anyhow, I thank you for listening and putting up with me. And we're coming into springtime here finally. I haven't had the sun for a little bit, so I'm going to go out there and enjoy the weather, enjoy the day, go for a walk. I haven't got my bike out yet, but just waiting to see if the weather's going to stick with us here for a bit before I do that. And anyhow, I thank you again, and God bless, and I bid you adieu. Thank you so much for listening. Sorry, because I'm not done. I do this quite often, don't I? Just a little addendum to the first part of this video. And when you're going through if you're going through the UCC Article 8 of the Securities Transfer Act, I said that the birth certificate is a financial asset, is a security, and I'm talking about the short form there. People have suggested if it's not a security, the whole thing falls apart. Actually, that's not true. This is the foundational security, not the birth certificate. So without a birth certificate, really changes nothing except the fact that you have it. And according to the rules, there's something you have to do with it, as I've discussed. It has to be endorsed and returned to the intermediary, the custodian, to convert them to an intermediary. Now, when you're going through the UCC Article 8, if you do, or a Securities Transfer Act, it's not going to say in there that a birth certificate is a security. It doesn't say it that way. It's claim to. This is the interest. This here, not the birth certificate. The birth certificate is claim to, like your jacket is the interest, the ticket is the claim to it. Now, and in that sense is a security. So you could say that you could see that a coat check, a little ticket, is a security, but you're not going to see that in a securities legislation that a coat check claim ticket is a security. You identify the interest and the means to identify the means of claim to it, whether it be an actual copy of this or the little short form birth certificate. Just read the legislation. It's all there if you can connect the dots. And this is the thing. So, somebody was peppering me about the birth certificate. Well, if I answer that question, for me to answer that question would lead to another question, would lead to another question, because you see, there's a series of things that have to be connected here to see it in your mind. And again, I don't know where you're at. So I don't think too many people here, took securities courses to become dealers or traders in securities. Some of my friends have. And so they went through the process. I've seen the books. So it's understanding the principles and the concepts And I also, in one of the second video, I think, covered what a security is. Look through it, what a security is, and see how it all fits, how this is, without question, a security. This is the mother of all securities. This is the mother of all debtors right here in your live stream. So you won't be seeing stuff in there that, oh, your registration of live birth is a foundational security or registered certificated security. It's registered, it's certificated, it's a security. Plus, if you look up the meaning of security, you'll see in there, dealing with property and profits, proceeds, so on and so forth. And as I say, everything you do in this live stream is going to be sit on top of this. No question. Everything you do in this world is going to be out of this name or a name derived from this document, period. But you don't hold this document. Be different if you did. Again, then that's what gives rise to the trust. And they haven't given any no equal value in exchange. It's not there. That's why they have the obligation to perform. I mean, if they give you dollar for dollar in exchange for your security, then we'd be done. There's no trust. So just when you're going through these things, so this is the interest, and the birth certificate is the evidence of claim to it. But it doesn't say birth certificate, but it is in the legislation. And so that's why I say it's a lot easier if people would just obtain the reclaiming securities information and read that. It truly is a renewing of the mind. You would be you'd be amazed how many people, when they get the reclaiming security stuff, how they realize things they did in the past, why it didn't work, or they were close, and that a whole bunch of stuff, a whole plethora of things are irrelevant. It's nonsense. It has no place in trying to get your freedom back and control of and over your life, property, so on and so forth, your children, and stop this nonsense from these human governments imposing. I was going to say their will. It's for people who are not aware of this. Government authority, it comes from the will of the people, and the will of the people is not also the will of God. There's the will of God, and then there's the will of man, or the will of the people. So government authority is founded on the will of the people. And ultimately, if you want to get rid of this nonsense out there, we got to stop empowering these governments, these human governments. Stop voting. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, and people don't see it. We're all born into it. I get it. It's all we know. So anyhow, I hope that little tidbit there helps. And again, I'm done. So thank you so much. God bless. Love you. And we'll talk to you soon. Ciao.